and welcome back with Chinoko 1. You are once again getting me doing a book review while cooking and in my pajamas because I promised. So, I currently have a really bad headache. So I may accidentally mention that several times because of the brain thought that comes out my mouth. I don't think inside my head. And I currently have my vegetables soaking in the sink. Always wash your vegetables. Like always. Even if you get salad mix that says it's pre-washed, wash your vegetables. Real quick, I'm gonna run through some more self-care stuff because of real simple stuff like I mentioned in the last video. I don't generally feel like eating aside from cooking as I'm doing now. There's also stuff that you can grab that's like, you know, healthy quick grab stuff. Like this morning I had a yogurt and a little snack bag of trail mix. I didn't even finish the trail mix, but I ate something and I ate something healthy. So of course, you know, remembering to drink water, which I'm fairly terrible at. And I have this, which is 24 ounces, and I got it actually for traveling sake, for going to like airports and stuff like that, because you carry it through empty and then you fill it up so that way you don't have to pay for stupid expensive water, right? Right. Also, because science is weird, if you ever take a water bottle like this, that's got like the flip top or anything like that, before you open it, you want to release, you know, twist the top to release some of the pressure, because otherwise, as soon as you open it while you're on the airplane, if it's in the air, water is going to come shooting out the spout the moment you open it. Science is weird. So yeah, FYI on that one. I'm terrible at drinking water. I'm terrible about most things involving self-care. Trying to remember to drink regularly through the day is harder for me. Drink 30 days a day. Morning, noon, and the evening. I can remember that. Because generally it coincides with the fact of, yes, you're required to have a meal. I know you don't want one, but do it anyway. You know what? Drink water 3 times a day. And this is water, but it's got these little powdery energy drink things that you can put into it. And it's just like a whole bunch of B12 vitamins. And then this kind has caffeine in it. I have B12 deficiency, so I need B12 all day anyway. Some people have a harder time absorbing different vitamins than others. So making it in liquid form makes it easiest for me. I also give myself shots. I'm doing a book review for Wayward Son by Rainbow Rowell. I'll get to that in a minute though, because where'd it go? May, why are you in the kitchen? You know better. Go on. All the way. Heifer. I'm a bibliophile, so I like books, man. I like books. And so, but here's the problem. There's not an indie, I live in the South, right? So, yeah, books are not so much a big popular thing here. Up until now, we had one bookstore, and it was Barnes & Noble's. And then the only other one was, or not Barnes & Noble's, we had a Books A Million here. Anyway, but we have a Books A Million, and then across the bay, we have a Barnes & Noble. Those are our 2 bookstores. There were no independent bookstores. And Books A Million sucks. It's tiny, it's not organized, it has horrible selection. No. And so I would go across the bay to go to Barnes & Noble's because I like them a lot better. But even still, I wanted to be able to shop indie, just can't. So a lot of times when authors would post about the fact of, okay, that they're going to be releasing stuff, you can pre-order it here, I would have to pre-order from indie bookshops online. I randomly will do searches as far as the fact of, okay, do we have any indies that have opened up that I don't know about? We had one open up. My mom, I told her about it, and she was just like, they're going to get the wrong kind of clientele. And I'm just like, Mama, this is the South, okay? And I'm like, us, New Orleans, and Savannah are like the 3 most haunted cities in the United States. Why? We are built, you know, on blood, sweat, and tears of slaves. Now granted, this part of town is not as haunted as, say, you know, downtown, you know, midtown. because that's where all the plantations and stuff were. This is more area where I live is more referred to as casually haunted. Because of the fact of, okay, this house isn't haunted, but our last house was. In which case you'll be like, dude, rude. Because of the fact of you're sitting there and you just, cold just sweeps through you. And I am fucking sitting here. How dare you? You could have walked around my chair, asshole. Or like you'll be standing in the middle of the living room talking, and they'll walk through you. And just like, again, Midtown cemeteries are haunted. The lighthouse is seriously haunted. We have an abandoned mental hospital that is not as haunted as you would think. It is creepy as hell though. But the lighthouse is definitely haunted. And then, like I said, downtown and stuff and the plantations. Which unfortunately are still standing. They're beautiful, but they're horrible. And they're haunted as fuck. The haunted bookshop is not haunted. But I've been in there and I didn't feel anything, so. Now New Orleans, oh my god, my hair stains on end in New Orleans because of the fact that I feel very fucking crowded. Especially around Halloween. Oh my god, don't get me started. I did that once and I will never go back because everybody and their mother is doing freaking seance. I will never go back to New Orleans at Halloween. So, but I found out that we have an indie bookshop and I, of course, was just like, yay! But I went, and first day I went is, I was going to go down there anyways, but I found out about the fact of, okay, they were having 2 events almost back to back. Saturday afternoon was a world building class with local author Brian Anderson, as with the release of his new book published by Tor. See, The Bard's Blade, which looks really good. And of course, you know, I got it signed because I like to support local authors and different stuff like that. Which, luckily for me, hey, the bookshop had a lot back to back. And they're very big on supporting local authors. So I racked up on some local author books. But I went to that class and it was a lot of fun. And I ended up getting my first Terry Pratchett book. And Alex, one of the staffers there, was just like, no, start on this one. It's a standalone. It's a good place to get started. Another one I got was Dragon's Call #1, called The Dragon's Sword. Isn't it pretty? I have a thing for redheads, and I have a thing for women with swords about to kick your ass. I'm like, no, this is another local author, and they signed it. Because they're a local author, though, they'll usually go in there and will just, you know, sign some of their books. And then also went back on Monday, evening with YA romance authors. This one, called Soulmated, which is our own Voices author, Shia Patel. Sounds really good, actually. I'm excited. It's like sort of a soulmates story, except for the fact of, yeah, it's really interesting sounding. And then this one, isn't it pretty? Look. Look, it's sparkly. So pretty. And it's one of those ones that you would think normally sounds like, you know, self-insert One Direction fanfiction. She ends up accidentally meeting like her rock star crush, and he ends up falling in love with her. Right? One Direction fanfiction. Stop. But it's not, because of the fact that through the whole thing, she's just like, this is not happening. This is a long extended punk. This is a prank at my expense. You know, the fact of, maybe it's all in my head. And she's, her character is actually a very anxious person, which I liked, because you don't see that very much. You know, the author just talking about it and everything like that, I was just like, okay, this sounds super cute. My third one that I got at that event, After Me, which is a self-published book by George Scarborough, who is, again, another local author. It is about the soul DMV. I'm not joking. She was describing it or whatever, and that was sort of the thing that I was just like, so it's a soul DMV. And she's like, yeah, actually. And so that was sort of like the ongoing joke the rest of the evening we were talking about it, is the fact of, you know, down at the soul DMV. And it's about where basically this girl ends up getting killed, but then she ends up having to, she's got stuff, a task or something she has to complete before she's allowed to pass over. Thing is though, she doesn't know what it is. Jareth. all the way. You know, it sounds really cute. Normally, full honesty here, I'm generally very skeptical of self-published books. Having said that though, my favorite book ever, and my favorite LGBT book is a self-published, Her Name in the Sky. The Martian was originally self-published. There are gems out there, I'm just usually very wary. And then another book I got, which is actually, this is a used book that I got, is the Vampire Book, the Encyclopedia of the Undead. And this I did not actually get from the Haunted Bookshop. I got it from a used bookstore and had them ship it to me. It's an entire encyclopedia of basically all the vampire lore across the world, all the vampires that have ever showed up in media, so books, movies, video games, whatever. Probably anime. Like if I look in here, Alucard's probably going to be in here like 6 times. Vampire Hunter D's probably in here. I mean, like, this thing is just fantastic. Man, it's got Dark Shadows in here, okay? Which was a black and white soap opera that later got remade into a comedy starring Johnny Depp that was an affront to the actual, you know, parent content, because it was completely nothing like the parent content. If you want a remake of Dark Shadows, there's a fan fiction that is a Supernatural Destiel fan fiction called Metaphysical Gravity. It's Dark Shadows, Metaphysical Gravity. And it follows the actual original storyline and plotline from the original soap opera. And so this fic is fantastic. I've read it, I couldn't tell you how many times. It's really good. I got this because of the fact that I was actually trying to find information on the New Orleans vampires, because there are several. There's specifically one I was looking for, and all the books I kept finding on New Orleans lore was just basically like tourist trap crap. The frack? Like, I mean, maybe if you weren't from here and didn't know the stories of the vampires in New Orleans, you might go for it. But the fact of, okay, literally, if you go on one tour guide led thing through downtown to the hauntings and voodoo, or pretty much any of the stuff that goes on in New Orleans, you will hear more stories in like an hour than is in that book that you paid $22 for. Seriously, the tour guides in New Orleans are fascinating. You can take all different kinds of ones. You can take ones that focus on the history of voodoo and religion in New Orleans. You can take ones that are just literally on the history of New Orleans. People from different countries and cultures came, and how basically like mafia families started up, and it was like, you know, the Irish versus, you know, the Spanish, and then you've got the Cajuns, and then just like all kinds of stuff, right? You should also go to the Mardi Gras Museum, because it is fantastic. Oh my god, it was so interesting. We ran out of time. We had to leave though. Jareth, son, I did not stutter. Get out of my kitchen. I got the vampire book because specifically I wanted to look up, but specifically was wanting to look up the different New Orleans vampires, which luckily there's a whole section in this book specifically on them, and then you can basically go like name by name to look them up, more detail individually. Because one of the vampires there is actually what inspired Anne Rice to write the Interview with the Vampire book series. When we were there actually on Halloween, we accidentally got a picture, or I did, of 2 vampires. We just thought they were going to a costume ball. Okay, how do I know the vampires? So I took a picture of the street because there's a lot of the original buildings from when New Orleans was originally built. And one of them is the fact of, okay, when slaves were originally brought in, because New Orleans is a port city, they would then quarantine them to make sure if, okay, you know, are they sick? Are they going to infect anybody else? You know, they basically quarantine them to see, okay, are you going to survive? Or how healthy are you? You know, and it's this building with this itty bitty tiny little windows. That was all the ventilation in the building. That building is still there. And you can see how old it is. And then you've got like, you know, these cobblestone streets and stuff. And then you've got like the entire other side of the street is, you know, beautiful and updated and, you know, historical looking. But then you've got this building that just reeks of death, you know, and misery. And so I was standing back because there was a restaurant that they were looking at, and he was, you know, people were trying to see if they could get pictures. I forget what that one's called, but it's the guy who basically used to own it and he gambled it away and then he killed himself. And now he's got a haunted table that, you know, it's a whole nother one. But I was trying to take a picture of the street because of the fact of the complete contrast of history, you know. And they're walking down the street coming towards us, and, you know, full skirts, like, just, it was amazing. Like, in which case they got our attention because of the fact of, holy crap, those are not costumes. Those, like, look authentic. That must have cost freaking a fortune, both of them. But I was taking a picture, and, you know, I got them, like, almost as they're going right out of frame. Or close to frame. You know, and then I looked at it. And so I freaked out our tour guide the whole time because of the fact of, I could just point out where stuff was. But New Orleans is very haunted, like I said. So anyways, I got her a tour guide. I just, like, hand him my phone. I'm like, what looks wrong in this picture? And he's just like, okay, well, they're blurry. And I'm like, are they though? And he's like, no, they're not. Just their faces are. And I'm like, what else is wrong with the picture? They don't have shadows. Bingo. They don't have shadows. Which is very obvious because of the fact of, no, you can see our shadows. And she's wearing a very wide skirt, you know, with like a train and stuff on it. And so, but the fact of, okay, her skirt is about this far off the ground. She should definitely have a shadow, unless she's got lights under her skirt, which she didn't. Yeah, neither one of them had shadows. And I'm just like, and he's like, you got pictures of vampires. And I'm like, not intentionally. And he's like, you got pictures of vampires. And he goes, and you keep pointing out ghosts, I don't even know we're there. He goes, and then you get pictures of them to prove the fact that you know they're there. I'm just like, yeah. Yeah, he was a little freaked out. It was funny. But okay, everybody in New Orleans knows New Orleans is haunted. You can't live in New Orleans and not believe it's haunted. It's haunted. Like I said, part of the vampires, the, you know, ghost stories in New Orleans are well known and stuff like that, but the vampires get less talked about. You've got the Cascat Girls, which is, they'll make it into a ghost story, but it's not a ghost story. It's just one of those things that's like something that happened in history and it just got blown way out of proportion because New Orleans is super superstitious. And so the fact of, okay, if you tell it the way it actually happened, the story's freaking hilarious. But it's popular to be told like as a ghost story of vampires. It's not vampires. So, but I got that because of the fact of no. And so one of my stories does include vampires. Actually, two of my stories include vampires. A world where the supernatural just exists right alongside the normal. So I wanted to basically be able to look up vampire lore across history and from different cultures and different stuff like that. And luckily, because it's out of print and I got it used, I got it for like $5. Fucking fantastic. Did you see this? I was like, shit. Look at this. Look at this. So many facts. Like this book has 909 pages. Yes. Yeah, I'm weird in the fact that I like to do research and I like to study stuff if it interests me, which includes like writing, which is why I've, you know, studied so many different books as far as to improve as a writer. Now, to get back to the actual, you know, book review I'm supposed to be doing, it is the sequel to Carry On. What it started off is that she has a book called Fangirl, and Simon and Baz ended up being a fan fiction that the main character in that book was writing about. Their story was so popular. The fact that people were like, no, I want to know more about this world and these characters. So Rainbow ended up writing Carry On, you know, based off of, or like a nod to Draco and Harry from Harry Potter. The first one was Carry On, though their first introduction is actually in Fangirl. And then Wayward Son came out. You have never seen two people already in a relationship pining so hard for each other. It was, oh god, this book is angst. This book is so much angst. But the thing is the fact of, okay, one thing I liked about it is the fact of everybody, I guess, expected the book to be, you know, in the aftermath of the last one, you know, domesticity, fluff, whatever. Like fan fiction, right? Curtain fic. case, which I appreciated because of the fact of, to me, that's unrealistic. And I hate when people just expect, you know, characters to go through traumatic stuff and it not affect them and they just go on like nothing happened. I'm like, no. That's one thing I appreciated about Stephanie Meyer's Twilight series, the book New Moon. People want to give her shit about the fact of, you know, her depressive state, you know, because her boyfriend dumped her. It's just like, this child has PTSD. She got stalked, hunted, and nearly murdered by a vampire as a game. On top of which, she already knows his girlfriend wants revenge on her. And she ends up losing not just her boyfriend, she ends up losing her entire family, which includes Alice, her best friend, who is the one she's writing emails to an address that will never get them. And she has nobody to talk to about any of the stuff she's going through. She's having night terrors and nightmares about, you know, James hunting her and Victoria finding her and killing, you know, Charlie and stuff. But sure, make it just all about Edward. Now granted, does she get reckless and all obsessive with him? Yeah, she's not coping well because of the fact of she has no one to talk to and is all by herself in all this. Then she makes a new friend who basically ends up, is really good for her and is way more understanding than anybody else, and the fact of, okay, she's got issues and she's not coping well, and the fact of, we'll just roll with it. On top of her abandonment issues, which she already has because her parents are divorced, her best friend ghosts on her, you know, on top of all of this. And then, oh wait, no, she ends up running into Laurent, who was running around with James and Victoria, and he wants to eat her. You know, she knows that Victoria's in the area and hunting her. Like, all kinds of hot mess going on in this poor child's life. Only to come to find out, oh wait, her best friend's a werewolf. I'm like, this girl slaps werewolves, bosses vampires, punches more werewolves. We stand. She's not here for any of your shit. So that's one thing I appreciated, like I said, in New Moon, is the fact of, no, you know, she's traumatized. This is like, she's messed up at this point. You know, and the same thing Rainbow Rowell does with Carry On is because of the fact of, okay, in the aftermath of all of this, Simon is not handling it well. He's got his own PTSD. He started off going to therapy and then basically refused to go back. He's got depression. He's got an identity crisis because of the fact that he realized in the last book, basically his entire life has been manipulated by someone else. And the fact of, okay, this legend about him being, you know, the legendary hero and the prophesied hero, okay, he completed his task. What now? You know, what purpose does he serve? What is he supposed to do with his life? He's always worked toward this one specific goal, which he achieved. You know, and the fact of, okay, he also no longer is a wizard. Or, well, doesn't have his magic, anyways. So at this point, he's just sort of like, okay, what is my purpose? What do I do? What am I good for? You know, the fact of, and then, you know, of course, is questioning all of that with the fact of, you know, his relationship with Baz. And the fact of, okay, I'm not the person he fell in love with. You know, on top of which is, Simon is new to being in a relationship with a guy. He doesn't necessarily know, he's not comfortable with it yet. And so, like, the first time basically somebody gives them a look when they're in public and he was holding, like, Baz's hand, he reacts badly. And so then he basically feels shame. So then he's, like, afraid to hold his hand in public. And then basically is the fact of, okay, I'm such a horrible person and a horrible boyfriend, and I'm not the person he fell in love with, and blah, 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 blah. He's going to break up with me any day, so I should probably just go ahead and break up with him. Like I said, you've never seen two people in a relationship pine so hard for each other. At the end of the book, they still haven't gotten it resolved. The promise of it is there, and I just sort of like got to the end of it and literally went, Rainbow! Are you fucking kidding me? We were finally gonna have a conversation. They were finally gonna use their words. Damn it! And so, like, I enjoyed the book a lot. The only aspect I did not enjoy the book is the fact of Agatha. The book switches POVs, you know, who's telling the story. So sometimes it'll be Simon, sometimes it'll be Babs, sometimes it'll be Agatha, sometimes it'll be Penelope. Agatha's story takes way too long to show it has anything to do with anything. And I'm like, why does she even have a POV in this book? It has nothing to do with anything. But then it finally does make sense as far as the fact of, oh, and then you're just sitting there constantly distracted with the fact of, okay, well that took way too fucking long. But that is pretty much my only complaint with the book. Like I said, if you're expecting to go into it and be a curtain fic, it's not. I'm glad of. Yeah, I really liked it, and I am looking forward to the rest of it, or the third book. There's only going to be a third book. Rainbow. But I really do recommend the Wayward Son, Carry On Simon Snow series. The cover's freaking beautiful. I ended up getting the paperback version of the first book so that I could get the cover art style that matches this one. I wish I could get it in hard copy, but as you see, I have lots of new books to read. Very excited. And that's not even including the books I already had, and I've got like a whole bunch of audiobooks that I need to read. And currently, the book I'm reading is called Memory Man by somebody Badalchi. It's a mystery. It's about basically this guy who ended up getting into, he was a football player, but his first game, he ends up getting severely injured and ending his football career immediately. But he ends up suffering like a head wound and brain damage that completely alters the way his brain works. So the fact that he remembers everything now. He ends up going into law enforcement and basically able to use his new abilities because he sees the world differently than other people do. And his brain just puts together stuff, in ways that, most people's brains wouldn't. And so he ends up becoming a cop. Well, at the beginning of the story, he's coming home after a late shift and unfortunately comes home and his entire family has been slaughtered. So, in which case, that's how the book starts. It's on the back. That's not really a spoiler alert. And so then at that point, he ends up hitting rock bottom. And then there ends up being a school shooting that he ends up basically being called in to consult because of the fact that he sees things differently than other people. He notices things that other people may not. Ends up being able to help, tremendously. And the fact of, okay, they need to find the person who did this because apparently the person just like shows up killing people and then just gets away with it. Nobody saw him show up. Nobody saw him leave. Nobody knows how he did it. And they're just like, Amos, we need you. Again, not a spoiler because it's on the back of the book. Through all of it, end up finding out that the gun that was used to kill his family was used in the high school shooting. And so it's just like, well, shit. Plus several other things come up and you realize, okay, that this person involved is, for whatever reason, obsessed with Decker, or Amos Decker. And you may be wondering the fact of, okay, well, you read a weird variety of books. Yes, I do. And do you know why? Because writers should always be readers. And you can always tell when a writer only reads within their own genre, or the few that just don't read at all. Because they're limited. So you should always read. You read fiction, non-fiction, poetry, what the fuck ever. Just read a whole lot of stuff. Because it'll inspire you, give you ideas, maybe help you want to experiment with your writing style, different elements of storytelling that you may need to work on, villains, red herrings, plot twists, motivation, different stuff like that. I am not very good at writing villains. I don't understand how people can just do that to people. I'm evil, but I'm only in the evil of the sense of I'm going to play with your emotions as a writer. Intentionally, I'm going to toy with you, but not necessarily in a way that's ever something evil. It's, events and struggles and personal stuff that the characters are going through. I don't know how to write a villain. And so I'm hoping to, basically get better at that by reading, of course, other books and stuff like that. But then I also got a book that I'm planning to study called Bastards, Bullies, and Bitches. And it is literally just on how to write bad guys. In which case, of course, the other books that I'm go through, you know, talk about, you know, how to write villains, or they touch on it as well as your hero. But it doesn't go into detail. So many books only focus on writing your hero, not writing your villain or your antagonist. And it's just like, okay, this, I got the heroes. I'm good. We're good on that one. I need an evil son of a bitch. I can't think like that because I can't fathom thinking like that. I don't know how. You know, I need help. I gotta finish studying the book I'm currently studying. I don't remember what book is next on the docket as far as studying. And then what I plan to read next is probably going to be the one by Shyla Patel? Soulmated. Jareth, stop whining. No, it is not time to sing the song of your people. So yeah, I am finished with Wayward Son. I did this a while ago. I'm, like I said, doing all this, trying to get caught up on my book reviews, because I promised you I would. And this book is going to be a whole lot of mess of more talking about other stuff rather than book reviews, but hey, I'll just have to put that in the title of the fact of, yeah, Tanoka talks about, you know, yes, there's a book review, but it's a small part of all the talking. She talks about vampires and history in New Orleans. You know, while she's cooking. I will continue doing the book reviews and try to be productive this weekend, but also try to not overdo it. It's a balancing act, man. And like my current list of stuff I need to try to get done is cook, bathe Harley, dust, laundry, book review. Hi, checking that off now. Office, make bed, and Christmas tree. Yeah, my Christmas tree's still up. I was mostly living at my mom's for 2 months, so I didn't, you know, was home really to do anything. Drink water, morning, noon, and evening. Take your meds, eat, even if it's something quick and easy that's healthy, like yogurt and trail mix. Cook once, eat all week type stuff, you know, whatever. Sleep regularly, all that good stuff. And I will see y'all next time. Bye.